All right, here we go.
Good.
Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Joining me, as always, I suppose he would be one of my brides. It's Tom. What's up, buddy?
Hello, friends.
Also joining us, we're very happy to have him on the show, Mr. Clint, Heralds of War. Now co-host of Sigmar Down Under with Coach. I mean, the list of accolades: TO of CanCon, Age of Sigmar, and just an all-around hobby hero. What's up, sir?
Howdy, how's it going?
It's going well, man. It's great to have you on the show. Clint took excellent care of me last year. This year. Holy crap, that was this year.
It's still this year.
Still somehow this year, even though it feels like
Yes.
50 years ago when I was down in Australia at the beginning of the year. I want to share a fun story real quick. So here's a thing that happened. For those of you who watch the show regularly, you probably know that like I vape because that's just it's me, whatever. And I had my juice down with me, and I had kept it in my pocket. And one night, the first night of the tournament, I was kind of crawling around the floor helping clean up because people are messy individuals and we're leaving bottles and stuff around. So I was cleaning, helping everybody clean up, doing my part. And I got back to the hotel and I reached in my pocket and I realized, oh no, my juice had fallen out. Now this is a nightmare situation because I was low on juice. Mate, I got by. And then the next morning I walk in and I walk over to Clint and I'm like, hey, this is a super long shot. Keep in mind, CanCon's huge. There's hundreds of people just for the AOS stuff. And let's not even mention the other hundreds of people in this larger, massive, auditorium room we're in. And I'm like, you didn't happen to find a small bottle of, like, red juice. And Clint, without missing a beat, just reaches in his pocket and goes, this? And just hands it back to me. And I was like, oh my God! Boom! Yes, this is it, my savior. So this is what addiction looks like, folks. But Clint saved my life, so it was great. It was great. It was a fun time. And I know, sadly, there's no CanCon this year, which is a shame. Australia has turned a corner, but nonetheless, lots of tournaments still happening, smaller tournaments, and I know we're gonna build to an incredible 2022 CanCon, which I certainly plan on being there for, and I hope all of you out there who could attend is going to be there as well. I assume you're already getting some big plans going, Clint?
That will be my 2021 plans just on ice, because I already had big plans for 2021, and then sort of about June I went, I'm not going to get to do any of this, am I?
Well, that's all right. It's only going to make next year all the sweeter. So there we go. But there will be some tournaments. You mentioned you're going to a tournament this weekend, right? Because you guys are still doing some smaller tourneys.
Yeah, we're doing stuff. I think it's about 36 players or something like that for a 2-day event down in Brisbane. So yeah, I'm super keen. It's my first tournament in 14 or 15 months or something like that.
Well, my jealousy knows no bounds, Clint. I want you to know that. So, good luck. All right. At any rate, though, we're going to be talking about vampire speculation tonight. We're going to be talking about what we think the vampires will be. Are they a thing? Are we getting a vampire army? Is it happening? Yes. Okay. So, but we're gonna talk about it. But first, of course, we've got the news. Tommy, what's up?
So we have a rumor engine.
We do. I only have
and there's the
today's
hammer.
rumor engine up. I want to talk about this.
Right.
This makes me angry. Okay.
Of course it does.
I get it. Warcom team, guys. Look, hello, Warhammer community team.
Go over to camera 2.
Join me over here on camera 2. Warhammer community team. Hi, how you doing? You're all great people. I want you to know that. I really do appreciate all of you, and I completely understand why. Like at some point back, the rumor engine used to just be the picture in the article, right? Like you used to be able to just see it. And then they realized that people weren't clicking through, so they hid the picture, right? And you have to actually click into the article to see the image.
They got to get their clicks.
I understand. We got to get our clicks, guys, so I get it. No issue. I'm fine with it. Okay. With these advent calendar images, it was the same thing. They would just show like 15 or something, right? And you would click in and then it would show you the picture. And you would see the list of all of the advent calendar and it would show you all of the pictures that had been revealed. You know, like an advent calendar where when you've opened the door, you can see the thing, right? Then today, they just randomly decided that no, when you click into the article, now every one of them is also hidden again. And you have to click into the individual picture. So I couldn't do like a collected one. I was like, well, I'm not going into each one of these and putting the last 7 days together.
They need to get their clicks.
I guess.
All of the clicks.
So I couldn't do like a snippy screen capture of, you know, the last 7 days, which is what I wanted to do, because I wasn't going to like click in one, save the image, and then compile it into some kind of thing. I'm not doing that. I got my limits of what I'll do. So at any rate, stop that nonsense. Just put the image up on the page. And they got rid of all the old ones. All the old... I was like, that's fine. I'll just go grab yesterday's. Nope. Those are all gone. They were like, gotcha. You only go into this one. So at any rate, there's my little...
Apparently, that's a technology they should not be going into, advent calendars.
Yeah, I guess not. So, at any rate, I got today's, which is a cool hammer, which I think is a Lumineth bolt thrower or war machine thing. There's my guess. That's what I think it is. Two things we know. One, it looks like a relatively small live hand. Right? Two, Lumineth love hammers. We know that for sure. Okay? Three, it looks rather simplistic. Like the hammer itself doesn't look weapon-like. It looks more utilitarian, right? Rather than as somebody you smash with a hammer, some big impressive weapon. So I'm thinking like the crew of a war machine or something. Like maybe a bolt thrower, like they hammer, you know, to knock the bolt into place.
Could it be the most epic double bluff, and we're actually getting a Vampirate hunter, and it's his hand with the hammer to hammer in the stake?
Oh, that would be amazing. I like that idea too.
I don't hate that idea, but I think this is very clearly a Lord of the Rings model. Because you can get out of here if you think that they're going to design a hammer with no filigree anything on it.
Right.
For all of AOS.
Right.
Like we long ago left the world where there's plain iron heads on hammers.
Sure.
That doesn't exist in AOS anymore. Just not at all. So this clearly is not an AOS model. I don't think it's 40K either. I think it's Lord of the Rings. Because part of the design philosophy for sculpting the Lord of the Rings models is like adhering to the aesthetics, and that would match the aesthetics of like some Shire people or whatever, like or like a fortification builder or a smith or I don't know. Regardless, it's not a Warhammer model. That's my call.
Okay. Three good guesses. I like that. My favorite, if I get to pick one of these to be true, is I want Clint to be right.
Of course. Yes. Yeah.
Well, that's the double box then, isn't it? Right. It's the Vampirates and the Hunters. Done.
That's immediately what we'll follow on with, because once we actually get vampires, then the immediate next question is, when do we get our vampire hunters, right? Like
it's Order of Aesir.
It has to, one follows the other. Yeah, sure as night follows day, right? Like, they just come right after each other. I know how this goes. I've seen Castlevania.
So
I watched Vampire Hunter D. I get this.
The better lead-in would have been they would have released the Order of Aesir with Vampirate hunters, and you're like, what are they hunting?
What are they for? Yeah.
And they're like, no, they're real. We're here for them. And everybody's like, those don't exist.
Well, Tom, I'm going to argue that exact thing already happened when we get into the vampire speculation.
Ooh.
Oh. You'll have to stay tuned. All right, what else we got?
Something's happening this Saturday. No, Army's on parade. We have a live show this Saturday, or there is a live show rather.
Yep. Yeah, I'm gonna watch. I want to see who wins. I just want to see all the images of people's armies on parade boards.
I mean,
think it's gonna be exciting.
They were beautiful. Like seeing all the variety, stunning.
Yeah. Did you end up submitting your army, Tom?
No.
Clint, did you submit something?
No, I didn't even start. Unfortunately, I looked at it and I went, "That would be really cool to do," and then just never got there.
Yeah. I did get the Whirlwind's Edge army photographed and submitted. I did send it in.
Oh, nice.
Then the
Nice.
next day they sent out a thing saying that you have to put your like on the last day at like 4 p.m. they put up a post like, don't forget to put your email with this exact subject line. And I was like, you didn't say that in any of the previous ones. I went and read the rules. So, I mean, my subject was close, but I don't know. They'll probably disqualify me because I have like the wrong sequence of words. Either way, I wouldn't imagine it. I expect nothing from it because, again, when you're talking about like a worldwide thing versus your local store, there's people who do boards that are just incredible. But I did want to share that. I put a lot of effort into that board. It'll never go to a tournament, probably.
Ever. So, it's the best part about this.
Yeah, I put the most effort I've ever put into a board, and it'll probably never get to go to a tournament. So
the fates are just punishing you.
Yeah. I suppose I could share that out. I'll share that out at some point. I never shared all the photos, so I'll do that this weekend.
That was a really good week on Twitter and Instagram, like in the run up to the deadline, because everybody was, after they'd submitted, they'd put their pictures up. So Instagram feeds and Twitter feeds were just magnificent hobby. So that's one win from it, definitely.
Absolutely. What I do like about it is ultimately like it encourages a lot of people to do really impressive stuff that gets shared around. And since I haven't been getting to go to tournaments and see awesome armies much this year, seeing it shared online was actually really awesome. So it made me very happy. Cool. All right. What else we got?
The Broken Realms fiction, the stories continue on.
Yeah.
Another round.
They officially released the one that had went out in the email this last week. Clint, did you get a chance to read the most recent story?
I haven't, no. Sorry.
No, you're fine. It's okay. It is about Nemitar or whatever, the guy from the Blood Surf Hunt, Mr. Achillean King, who with his shark bros. And it's like apparently he got half his face cut off. I forgot that this happened in the in the confrontation. So he has half a face now. And
Poor guy.
Yeah, indeed. It's a rather fine little story, and what was fun about it was him realizing that he's becoming nothing more than like the trained shark. Like he is to Marathi and the witch elves as their trained sharks are to them. Right, is sort of the realization of the story. And it's basically them going up and down the Charwind coast, killing humans and elves to the man, just obliterating towns and murdering everybody. And there's a nice little duel between him and a Lumineth Blade Master that the Lumineth does not come out on the top of. So,
too bad.
Yeah, but it's a fun little story. It was really like, oh no, they're going full on here. You know, the Marathi's elves and the Idneth are just full on, let's murder everybody, and like they're just rolling through towns that were near Anvilgard, that were sort of in Anvilgard's sphere of influence, and they're just rounding up every man, woman, and child and killing them. No mercy, no exceptions. It's pretty brutal.
Not even like taking souls for the Idneth or anything like that, just like killing them all, or
well, the most of what you hear him talk about is no, it's just like efficient killing, like they just have to kill everybody.
Interesting.
Part of the story does revolve around the fact that like the strongest souls get captured by the witch elves and get sacrificed in blood rituals.
Of course they do.
Like that's where they end up taking the Blade Lord or whatever who loses the duel. Who gets Count Dooku'd in the story, by the way. Like he's spinning around his sword, and Nemitar like swings and sees an opening and cuts both of his hands off, and he's like, he gets Count Dooku'd. It's fun. It's fun times. It's a lot worse to happen in a fantasy universe, I suppose. Less chance of getting cybernetic replacement hands, I guess. Anyways, it was a fun story. If fun is foreboding and showing of just like how far those two are willing to go. They may be some people have talked about them breaking off from Order or having a real schism or a full-on civil war, and they do talk a lot in there about what do you think is gonna, like the Blade Lord's like, do you really think this is gonna stop the wrath of the Thunder God? Do you think the ruinous powers are going to not see this and come marching? Is your plan to throw the witch elves, or is like the Lumineth is like, is your plan to throw the witch elves in the way and run from the ruinous powers and hope that they kill them first before they throw you in the way and run? Like both, like it's just great commentary from the Lumineth Swordmaster, and I was like, we need this unit. Where are these guys? This dude's got it. He's got the number. All right. At any rate, what's next?
We had the White Dwarf rules leak.
Yes, for spiders. A goopity goop goop goop. Oh yeah. Tom, what do you think of spider rules?
I think they're perfectly fine for what they are. I think, like, for those that thought that this was gonna like elevate them or something, they don't. Like,
well, I mean, it does elevate them. It just depends on what your goal was. I understand.
Right. Like, it does not make them like super competitive. Like, it does not solve a lot of the problematic situations, present.
Oh, sure.
So.
Yeah. Clint, did you get a chance to look over those spider rules?
I haven't yet. I saw some discussion about it on Twitter, and I will probably go and I'll read Pete Atkinson's breakdown on his blog at some point when he gets that up. Just, digest it all for me, Peter, and tell me what's good.
Because the breakdowns are great. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it was cool. Like, I like the abilities. An army-wide 5-up spell ignore is pretty great. A command ability for retreat and charge is pretty great. Like, it was full of a lot of good stuff. All right. All the battalions were good. I thought the abilities were solid. So I think that my answer to what it is if you were someone who really liked spiders and like, this is your army. If you're Paul, who's in the comments right now, right? Who's watching. Like, this was a glorious day for you, right? Because you got a ton of new tools. Right, the Loon Shrine can now restore half your units. As, by the way, it always should have for all these armies. Like, it should have just been, if you're doing this, then it restores half of this unit. If you're doing this, then it restores half of this unit. Like, it's taken us 3 White Dwarf articles to patch this one ill-written terrain piece, So all that's fine. I like that. I thought the battalions were all good. They contained the stuff you would want them to contain. They gave you abilities that I thought were really cool. I particularly like the Skitterstrand one, which allows your Skitterstrands to just, teleport basically all over the place. That's what this means. This means teleport all over the place. And I'm a big fan of giant teleporting spiders. I think that's pretty cool. So my answer is, I think the army was kind of dead in the water. Like, you were really up against it if you were playing just spiders before this. Whereas I think you're like, you can have a perfectly fun game, right? And yeah, you're right. You're not going to like 5-0 tournaments or something. But if you're just looking for like a nice, solid game with your friends, this is going to deliver. You'll have some options.
I don't know that I even agree with that. I mean, what I would say is this. No matter how you look at it, you're still up against a wall with the Spider War Scroll.
You're talking about the little guys, right? Your basic troop.
Yeah. Yes. You're always throwing like good money after bad because the War Scroll is just terrible. Like, there's just not, like, it's just not a good War Scroll, because even if you want to say the bite is great on the spiders, they're 1-inch reach on a cav base.
Sure.
Like, so, you're always going to struggle to make use of the small riders.
The people who are wanting to play spider armies aren't looking for that. Like, they're going to be happy with this and feel like they've got good options now.
I understand that. But at the end of the day, this, like, the problems that exist here are still the same problems.
Sure.
Like, even in a world where, like, heaven forbid, spiders went down to like 80 points max unit size of 20 and a horde cost of 300, right? So you're getting like 40 wounds for 30 points, or for 300 points.
Right.
40 wounds, 300 points, 20 models. Even in that world, which seems like really aggressive, that means that you're getting 10 wounds of mounted cav spiders for 80 points, right? That seems aggressive because they have like mount attacks and goblin attacks and then archer attacks. Even then, your only hope is to bury them in wounds. To take like 160 wounds of normal spider riders and then back by Ragnaroks.
Sure.
And they still wouldn't be like, they're still going to struggle against most armies because like if you lose activation, you lose the unit every time.
Well, it exposes an interesting challenge in the game, which is that what ultimately ends up making units into winners is one of two is the ability to defend, actually. And when you think of, and I know some people might say, yeah, but what about all the ranged units that are very dominant right now? My argument would be that's the ultimate defense. You can project your power where you don't risk anything in return, right? When I can just throw fire on you or something,
there's
and you're
no
way
reprisal.
Over there with no reprisal. That's sort of the ultimate defense.
Right. Yeah, you are immune to melee. Congratulations. It's a good
right, when you're not in melee. Yeah, it's a good plan. It really is. Now that, and ultimately, like, glass cannon units are just tough. They're tough in the game. But at any rate, like I said, I do believe that they will be. It's a good addition. I thought it was fun. If I didn't find spiders to be, totally creepy, I would be all about it. So there you go.
Somebody had asked me how I would fix them. The answer is it requires a War Scroll rewrite, and I think actually the right answer, honestly, is what I just proposed: 8,300 for 20 models. Because that, like, a 20 model spider unit is completely unwieldable. Like, that's it's super unwieldy. But you know what? At 300 points, I would take like 3 of those, and then some MSU, or 2 of those and some MSU.
Yeah, I hate that answer, and I don't like getting in the flood race. The right answer would be you just up the spiders a little. Like, you can make cav worth it. We have cav in this game that are worth it. Right, but they're nothing like these cav. Like, you'd have to like double their stats in order to make them worth it. I mean, it wouldn't honestly take that much work. But at any rate, perhaps a discussion for another time.
So,
we'll fix gets at some point in the future. Yeah. All right. Cool. And then, look, I'm glad the spiders got their article. Congratulations. But next month's White Dwarf, I'm stealing the next news item right from you, Tom.
Sure.
Because the most important thing to come out of this month's White Dwarf was nothing in this month's White Dwarf. It was next month, Sons of Behemoth. That's right, folks. Next month, we're getting some Sun stuff. I'm excited. Could be battalions. Could be a new sub-faction. This army could be a decent sub-faction that doesn't make me make awful trade-offs for no reason, away from actually being, good and fun. So I'm excited about that. Anything they could give me. Battalions? Yes. New sub-faction? Big yes. New list of artifacts? Good. A new war scroll of a shaman giant. Hey, I'm in for that. Whatever. The sky's the limit. Could be anything when it's just fine. It could be a boat. Yes, somebody just said it could be a boat in the comments as I was doing that. Yes. So I'm excited. Clint, what do you think of the Giants? What are you hoping for out of a Giant article?
I've only ever lost to them so far, so I'm quite okay with Giants. So I have unfortunately had to play them in things like shifting objectives, where 3 big giants get on the objectives, and then you fight like hell to try and call it back. I actually think they're okay, and I know that's not.
Oh no, I think they're quite competitive. It's not that. My issue's never been competitiveness. I think they're quite competitive.
But I didn't realize they didn't have any battalions.
They do,
because I've never read the book themselves. No, and
right.
Now once you said battalions, I went, yeah, no, I don't think I've ever heard anyone talk about them. Then that's why. So, that probably wouldn't hurt. Something to.
I would
You
just
know?
like a sub faction that didn't make me make outrageous choices in things like my one artifact and my one command trait and my one ability I get out of a sub faction, where like none of the things I actually want to play are all in the same one. You can I get one thing per. That's really the pain of playing the army is that you're like, oh, you want one thing from here and one thing from here and one thing from here because those are the only three good things in the book. At any rate, we could fix that. I hope we do. Thumbs up. Can't wait for January. Let's make it happen. All right. Cool. Okay. Anything? And I believe that's all the news, right, Tom?
Yep. That's all we got.
Awesome. All right. Notating the time. Let's talk about some pick of the week. Tom, what would you like to share with everybody for pick of the week?
I got nothing.
Oh, okay. Good stuff. Good stuff, Tom. You're coming through strong there. Clint, what would you like to share with everybody for pick of the week?
I would like to share a YouTube channel called Behind Closed Doors.
Okay.
He is based in Melbourne. He's only a little guy. He's only got probably a dozen videos. But he does some AOS content and a bit of retro stuff, some green bases for you, Vince.
Oh, no. No,
that
nightmare.
wasn't why I picked it. But so he's gone through and done some videos on, you know, painting Caradron and some Plague Bearers and things like that. And then he does sort of, if you don't want to sit there and watch him paint the entire skeleton or the entire Plague Bearer or whatever, he does shorts of specific things like painting yellow on a shield or something, and he'll go through and he sort of like and pulls that out of the tutorial and goes through that quickly and things like that. So
nice.
Yeah, I think the more people that sort of jump on and support him, you know, he'll just keep doing content. So
fantastic. I like it. Well, it's going to be an all Australian episode because my pick of the week is for your co-host on Down Under Sigmar, which is Coach, AOS Coach, and he did a show recently with Luke Stone around Har-Curon that I thought was really fun. I know there's some big Har-Curon fans out there, people who are really excited about what this army allows for as far as building goes. I know there's some folks in the chat right now who are pretty excited about it. And he and Luke did a whole show about it. So check it out. It's real good. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, let's talk about some hobby time. All right. Hobby time. Clint, you had a chance to work on anything? Did you have anything to get painted for the tournament?
No, I'm taking OBR, and I had sort of finished them a couple of weeks ago. Just sort of been working through them. Recently, I've sort of hurt my hand, so I haven't been able to paint. But so I've been doing a ton of assembly.
Gotcha.
Over on my Twitch stream on a Tuesday night, and this week I've been building Khorne Slaves to Darkness. So
okay.
Yeah. Just
now, traditional Slaves to Darkness. Like, what are we building here? Get me in the mix here.
I bought the Star Collecting box. So I went, these models are all awesome, and then looked over at a pile of Khorne bits I had, and thought, right, I'll paint them red. So I've been, converting the Lord on Karkadrak to hold there's the big Khorne symbol standard that you get in the Wrathmonger's box.
Yep.
That kind of looks like a standard, kind of looks like an axe. I can. Hang on. There we go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Yes. Oh, that's great. That's great.
So he still kind of satisfies the War Scroll, but he's got that Khorne touch to him and the head. And I've not gone crazy, but just working my way through that box pretty much at the moment.
That head swap and that change to that giant Khorne axe symbol thing was fantastic. That really made that dude feel like a completely different sculpt. That's good. Yeah, that came out well. I dig that. Awesome. All right. Tom, what about you, man? You been working on anything?
Dwarves.
All right. How goes the dwarven fight? Slow. How much more do you have to do? It's an easy answer, I suppose. We got a visual aid.
That.
Now, is that all just like pop-up work, basically, like finishing stuff out?
Yeah.
Most of it looks like at least painted.
Yeah, there's paint on almost all of it. Like there's a couple of them that don't have paint on it. But yeah, so I mean, like it's stuff that needs to be done.
Gotcha.
Like, and I have other dwarves. Like I have other tins of dwarves that need to be done. But that's what I have for right now.
Okay, got it.
So,
Uh,
yeah.
do you have an end state for this army in mind? Like, are you just gonna keep going until you're like me with Skaven, where you're just cracking 10,000 points and you keep going?
Yeah, I mean, like I've bought everything that I want.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Sure.
Like, so there's not any. Like, I don't know that there's any. Like, I don't know if there's anything that I need that I don't already have.
Okay.
That makes sense?
It does. Yeah. Sure. Maybe another ironclad because you only have one ironclad right now, right?
Yeah, I only have one ironclad. But I mean, in general, like I have one of each. I have a one frigate, one ironclad. I have two gun haulers. And so yeah, like I think I have most of what I want.
Okay. Fair enough. I'm just saying that you got to get like the second ironclad feels like the only part of the investment you should go for here. I mean, if you don't have two big boats, what are you doing with your life?
I don't disagree.
It's a scary amount of firepower, although admittedly not probably the competitive choice.
But I mean, like, yeah,
I get it.
I have what I'm gonna run. Like, I have like 35 Thunderers, so I have like way more than I'm ever gonna run of everything. So like maybe boats are the only thing that I would really need. But other than that, like I'm really happy with everything that I have.
Okay.
So
good. Well, speaking of going to excess, I'm just working on these little guys here, with more of them here, because I'm working on another exalted chariot. So this will be my. I realized I still had the parts for another exalted chariot. I was just looking through my Slanesh stuff, like taking an inventory to see kind of what extra bits and stuff I had in preparation for thinking about the coming army. Right, I had to do so. You got to before you're starting a new project, you got to get the bits organized, see what you got extra for conversions. You know, that kind of pre-planning. And as I was looking through there, I realized I still had an extra exalt chariot basically, and I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll just build that then. So because those are people complain about those. I don't get it. They're not hard. Like I actually didn't build it according to the standard instructions. I just kind of built my own version of it, and it's fine. It's a very easy kit to put together, and the chariot itself is like the easiest paint job in the world. It took me less than 5 minutes to paint the chariot. It's these stupid anteater horses and the girls on top that take the time. The chariot itself's fine. So at any rate, I'm gonna have that done up, and why not have more exalted chariots? They're really good, and great heroes in what I suspect will be both the current and new world, as they hit that kind of sweet spot. Plus, I do want to be able to run kind of the all chariot force type of thing if I want to go that direction, because that's just fun. All right, gentlemen. With that being said, shall we turn to our main topic? All right, let's talk about vampires. Okay, so vampires. Let's see. Hold on, I gotta switch our images here. There we go. All right, switching over to vampires. We have this little spoiler. I have the Warhammer Underworld's Warband Roadmap 2021 up on the screen, in which we notice that here in March, we've got some exciting stuff here on the screen, in that we have this very cool swashbuckly looking figure with this very vampire-y like symbol underneath it. It seems to match up to the rumor engine. We've got a dual cutlass or saber wielding death vampire-y looking symbol thing here. Okay, so let's start with the first. Do we all agree that there is clearly some kind of Vampirate Underworld's Warband in March? Is that what this is? Let's start there. Clint, what do you think?
I think it's probably 95% chance. 95, 98. I'm not going to go certain.
Okay.
But yeah, pretty good chance.
Right on. Tom?
Yes, there is 100% a warband coming. That is Vampirates.
Ring a ding ding. I'll predict a thing. Lock it in now. Pick of the week. That's right. Here's the call. It's absolutely Vampirates, this warband. I'm 100% on this one. I have no doubt in my mind this is what's coming. It is going to be sweet. They're going to be swashbuckling. They're going to be buckling swashes. It's going to be fantastic. I am very excited.
I agree. Yeah, I think that like the outline, the symbol, the everything points towards death, pirates.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Here's what really makes me think that it's not just Scourge Privateers or something, in that there would be first of all, there'd be a dominance of Order factions here, but also you'd get back-to-back Order factions, right? And you would, whereas if this is death and this is death, right, then things kind of balance out a little better over the whole thing. Because we had a sort of destruction-heavy previous time through. So, all right. Okay, so we all agree. We're definitely in March. We're 95% sure getting Vampirates. That's where we're at.
Pretty sure. Yeah. Pretty sure.
If we average it out, we're at like 98.5% on Vampirates between the three of us. Okay. Next question. Here we go. Are we getting a whole vampire release? Doesn't have to necessarily be in March, by the by. Like, sometimes these things are months off. But are we getting a vampire release near this? Let's call it in the first half of next year. How about that? Okay. That is the army this warband belongs to. Be it vampires of some kind. Doesn't have to be Vampirates. This just can be vampires of any kind. Clint, what's your odds on this one? What are you booking me for the odds on this one?
I think it's fairly likely that we will get some sort of vampire release. Like you said, I don't know if Vampirates is a big enough design space to flesh out an army with.
Okay.
Just off the top of my head, without expanding it into undead sailors, wraith fleet kind of stuff. But that could be what we're getting. But I'm also not sure whether they just want to rehash, Vampire Coast from the old world.
Right.
So,
well, I mean, if we get them, we're going to get the whatever it's called. I'm looking for my Firestorm book. The stuff from Firestorm. Like, if we get it, the Wraith Fleet. Like, it will be a full-on Wraith Fleet release if we get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
I submit to you. Here we go. Ring-a-ding-ding. I predict another thing, which is that we are definitely getting this army. I'm locking it in now. Okay? Here it is. 100%. I'm on for this. Let me talk about why. I'm going to tell you why. Okay? Why they've already told you that this is happening. Okay? First, Underworld's warbands without an associated army are rare. Not unprecedented. It happens.
Sure.
But rare. So that's already a strike in the favor. Okay?
Sure.
2. Remember earlier when I mentioned, you kind of said the Order of Azir thing? Yeah?
Yep.
Okay. And I mentioned that we already got that. Okay? Yes?
Yep.
All right. So we all remember our friend Van Brecht, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So Van Brecht, who is out of Broken Realms Morathi.
Yep.
He has his like little special censure ability, whatever you want to call it. So he is a Lord Veritant. Okay.
Yep.
That's what's relevant there. The normal Lord Veritant has this little ability called Sanction. Okay. And what Sanction does is, in your hero phase, you can pick one enemy wizard within 7 inches of this model and roll a dice. On a 4+, that enemy unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. Okay, fine. Who cares?
Yep.
Like, most people don't play Lord Veritants. I just wanted to give you the groundwork of what the ability is. It normally sanctions wizards, right? Because Veritants are kind of wizard hunters. Van Brecht, however, is different. His works against a much broader selection of enemies. Like if you actually
Right.
play with Van Brecht himself as the named character in his battalion, his sanction ability works against like not just wizards but all like chaos. I think is what the generic thing is, so it's way expanded out. But
Okay.
it also works against vampires, keyworded.
Hmm.
Okay,
Okay.
that is very specific to
Yeah,
just
quite
throw
quite.
in there as a bonus thing. There are not that many vampire keywords in this game right now. Just to point that out, okay?
It's true. It's true.
Okay. So, as soon as I saw that, I was like, all right, that's interesting.
Go on.
Interesting. Now, next up, at the end of the Broken Realms story, I won't give spoiler. I mean, I already threw away a bunch of spoilers earlier for that story, so whatever. You're welcome to it. It's been out like a month and a half. I'm sorry. We're past the window. The at the end of that story, you get something that very much seems to be a vampire.
Yeah.
Carve its way through the ship.
A bunch of pirates.
A bunch of Scourge privateers that are holding Van Brecht. Right? And makes like very short work of that. And they describe the thing as like this cold presence with big wings and piercing red eyes, right? But this sort of malign intelligence that frees Van Brecht and then like just disappears into the night.
Yep.
Right? Which there's nothing more appropriate in a story. There's nothing more appropriate in a story than to have the vampire hunter get rescued by a vampire. Right? Like that is exactly the type of story that GW loves.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Yep.
Okay.
And I don't think they were throwing out that's like a whole little page of that story. If they didn't mean to signal something through that narrative, they could have just said, because anybody could have rescued Van Brecht.
Yeah.
Right? They could have had anyone or anything rescue him.
Yep.
Right? But they purposefully cast this like just enough information to sort of tell you it's a vampire without anything else. The combined with the fact that that he has vampires on his freaking scroll as a keyword, I was like, lock it in. This is happening, folks. Like, there's no way all of that is just pointing at an
It's a wonderful catch. It's a great catch. Yeah.
So, this is my evidence. Okay. Cool beans. So, let's assume for the rest of our discussion that we're going to get this army. Okay, let's just say this is real. All right, and we'll go from there. Okay.
It's a great hypothetical.
Sure. I mean, I feel like it's the necessary assumption for the rest of this show. But that's all right. Unless we just stop there. This would be a really weird show if we were like, are we getting vampires? Nope. All right, thanks everybody. Bye. Good night. No, I mean, like that would just be the strangest show we've ever done. Okay. All right. And yes, Kairos has said how the vampire killed the elf was gnarly, kind of deserved it after Anvilgard. Yes, I agree. That Scourge privateer was way too full of himself, and it does not end well for him. So there you go. Okay, cool beans. So let's assume the army's happening. I brought up a picture now of one of my favorite units of all time, which is the Coven Throne. I think this is still one of the coolest models they've ever made. The 3 chilling vampire ladies on like the pillows that are stuffed with like organs and entrails, riding on a giant throne lifted up by spirit ghost knights is one of the cooler ideas they've ever had. But at any rate, so what do we want out of a vampire release? So this army is real. That's what we're assuming. Clint, you mentioned it kind of already. What do you think a full army looks like for this? Sketch me out high level. What's this kind of look like to you?
Well, I have differing ideas depending on whether it's full Vampirates or just a vampire release, really.
Sure. You can go either way you want. Go whichever way you want.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of people who love Soul Blight stuff around the world. And especially in Australia. There's some big Soulblight proponents who desperately want plastic Blood Knights. But I think if you were going, you would almost have, like, if you're going Soulblight, you'd almost have some sort of weird. I think it'd be too similar to Flesh Eater Courts, just they wouldn't be delusioned, right? So you'd have your vampire, like you'd have your king, your vampire lord, and then you'd have your vampire knights, and then you'd have your sort of men at arms who might be skeletons or zombies or thralls or something like that, or even just given the way that everything coexists in Shyish, they might be humans, and you start. It looks a little bit like a Bretonnian army at that point too. Vampirates, we've got like you've got your pirate raiders, whether they be zombies or skeletons. Once again, we've seen that. I've built a Vampirates army, which used Corsair bits and skeletons to be all my skeleton warriors. And you've got. I wonder if they would do a boat based vaguely on the Coven Throne or something like that. Yep. And then you've got to have your pirate captain. But he's probably going to be an infantry model. I can't say no to a vampire plastic infantry model because we don't have one of those yet. Swashbuckler or not, it's still going to be pretty cool. And then some sort of like Leviathan from the deep or something like that. We've got so many stories of gyre sharks and krakens and all sorts of stuff from the story so far on the ocean. You can imagine one of those being raised as the centerpiece for the army, and 4 or 5 war scrolls and you're pretty much done.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So they're the two options.
Which honestly, like, so sub question then, Clint, for you.
Yep.
Is it Vampirates or not in your mind?
As I sort of flesh out the non-vampire option, it seemed incredibly generic, so I'm going to go with Vampirates.
Right on.
The other one that sounds too generic. It's been done before. They literally, like, Flesh Eater Courts is pretty much that, but slightly different. So, Vampirates.
Right on. Tom,
Yep.
What's this look like to you? What do you want to see out of this release?
I need a boat.
Okay. We need an actual ship.
Yeah.
Like a big dead ship, like an old rotten wraith ship.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Anything else, or just that, like, literally this release is just a big boat terrain piece, and you're like, yeah, I'm good. Thank you. This is the best release ever.
Underworld's Warband and a boat for Tom.
Right.
That's it. Done.
His army's done.
Yep.
Is this Vampirates, Tom? Or is it more traditional Soulblight? Vampires.
I think it's Vampirates.
Okay.
I'm about 70% sure it's Vampirates.
Okay. All right. Any other units you think you'd want to see?
I want to see some monstrous stuff mixed in with the pirates.
Yeah, sure. So maybe, like, now, how monstrous? Because let's consider, like Vargeists, right? So Vargeists are one of the, like, 7 models in this game that have the vampire keyword right now, right?
Right.
Are those monstrous enough or more monstrous? Because those are, like, mid-sized monsters, right? Like, they're human-esque. Is that monstrous or not monstrous enough? Is that what's in your head?
Yeah, I think that's what's in my head.
Okay.
Something, I think that's what's in my head.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right on. For me, I think it's absolutely I think it is Vampirates, but I don't think all of the units are pirate units.
Sure, okay. I would agree with that. Yep.
What I mean by that is
crab people.
What's that?
I think there's some crab people.
Oh wow, crab people. I think the big crab arm is
Okay.
not belonging to a vampire model. I know what rumor engine you're referencing. There's like a big crab arm that we haven't seen what it belongs to yet.
That's true.
But I think it's just going to be one of the big dumb arms from one of the Slangor,
Mm-hmm.
because they all have old school crab arms. Anyways, but I don't know. Who knows? Um, my argument would be it wouldn't surprise me if you saw something like a redone Blood Knights, okay,
Yep.
like a plastic Blood Knight kit.
Yep.
But they just literally ride on the ships and then ride forth to go off the ship and attack, right?
Yep.
Because also in Broken Realms, there's a part where Slanesh's fleet shows up to attack in the rear the Idneth and the Scourge Privateer fleet, right? And Slanesh's fleet literally just has chariots on it. Like the boats land and then the chariots just come exploding out of the side of the ship. So
Mhm.
if we can put giant chariots, scything bladed chariots on ships, we can put Blood Knights on ships or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think the high level of this army is absolutely like the more Wraith fleet type of thing, but it's led by this
Sure.
vampire lord. I think they don't go pure swashbuckly Pirates of the Caribbean, because I think you're right, Clint, that they don't want to just copy like what was in uh, Warhammer, Total Warhammer, whatever that game is called. Yeah.
Yep.
And I think that what you'll see is like I think they'll do a vampire infantry type unit. That'll just be armor type guys. They love these types of models. Like it's clear that the sculptors love making these sort of taken in fives elite infantry, right? Like look at the new Twin Souls or Painbringers in Slanesh. I mean, look at most of the model units that are sort of the flagship model units they've made in the past 7 years, right? Go back to the end times and look when they did Blight Kings and when they did Wrathmongers and Skull Reapers, and you can go on and on. This is the type of stuff. Brutes, which came out when they did Iron Jaws, right? And Thunderers.
Yep.
Like it's not that they'd never make the standard more traditional like 10 or 30 guys in a units, because they do. Right?
Right.
But they really love making those elite infantry units now.
They do.
Like the sculptors clearly love it. You don't need to craft 10 individual dudes. You craft 5 really cool dudes.
Right. Right.
And I would suspect that's a lot more valuable to them.
Yeah.
So I think you'll get like an elite infantry like that. I think you will get some kind of thralls. I don't know what that is, but like they'll probably need some kind of mass thing.
Yep.
And my big question becomes: do they just also fold in all the existing vampire stuff? Like I said, there's about 7 war scrolls in the game that have the vampire keyword right now. Like both the vampire lord on those guys and vampire lord on foot. Any permutation of vampire lord obviously does. And then like Vargeists and the Coven Throne and the other version of the Coven Throne, the Bloodseeker Palanquin or whatever. Those are basically the vampire scrolls.
Do you think that they'll bring in stuff from other ranges, other ranges within the Death faction? So things like spirit hosts and stuff. You can imagine like a tide of spirits following these guys around or something like that. Like it's hard to say whether they would, fold in stuff that isn't vampires that you can currently use, but can kind of work in the narrative. Yeah,
I think they will. I think here's my argument. I say yes, they will, and they'll fold in all that stuff, but under like not Ghost. Sorry, I apologize. I said this wrong way. They'll fold in all the existing vampires. That stuff though, like Spirit Host, they'll just have allies as like the rest of Death, right? So if you want to kind of,
so you think that like Blood Knights are going to be in there?
Yeah. I mean, I think there'll be some kind of new thing that will replace the existing Blood Knight kit. Yes, I do.
And those wonderful bat swarms. And
oh yes, thank
bats.
you. Yeah, Dan mentioned Koth Neferata. Yes, obviously, and Neferata also has the vampire key.
Yeah.
And there was some other Mortarch, don't remember his name. Probably no one of consequence.
Yeah. I got the shirt on. Don't worry. Can't talk vampires without wearing the shirt.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, somebody said, "What do we think?" I saw maybe it was Coach who had asked in the comments, like, what will the Mortarks be, or who would the Mortark be? I mean, it's just Manfred and Neferata, and if they're feeling real saucy, they'll introduce a third new Mortark, and that's the one who will lead a lot of the like.
We have somebody as Mortark of the
stuff.
Abyss. Hold on, that's like of the deep seas. We have this. We have Mortark of the Abyss, and it is. I know somebody's gonna call it out. In the chat, if you know who I'm talking. Luther Harkon is Mortark of the Abyss.
I thought he's dead.
I was just about to say, isn't he dead? Yes, I know
not according to Warhammer Wiki.
Was he in the original, like in the end times? Then he blew up.
I'm on the wiki, so I don't know, but he is technically Mortark of the Abyss.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, by the way, yes, I do know that somebody had mentioned in the comments that the Ghoul Kings do have the vampire keyword. Yes, you're right. I'm not counting them because they're already flesh eater courts, right? So I'm excusing them from this conversation. But yes, because they're descendants of the Carrion King, who is a sort of maddened vampire.
Yeah, I mean, what I'll say is this: like, I think they could go one of two ways. They could go one of three ways. Sorry. Either you're gonna get an all new pirate, like heavy pirate themed army. That's really like leaning, like pitching right down to the middle of like pirates.
Mm-hmm.
And if that happens, I think we get an entirely new range. Okay. I think it'll be limited, but I think we get an entirely new range. And I think it'll be classed as the Wraith Fleet. Like, so it'll be that thing. Okay.
Okay.
So that's pitching down the middle. I think what's probably more likely is we get a recast vampire line.
Mm-hmm.
That is predominantly like traditional bat vampires. Okay. And then a small subfaction of the bat vampires are the Wraith Fleet. Okay.
Do you think like how sort of Soulblight has bloodlines, so to speak? Would that be like one of the offshoots? Yeah.
Yes, you'd get Wraith Fleet, and then you'd have and then each of the Mortarks. So it could be a reimagined, basically Legions of Nagash book, where each of the heads of the bloodlines are different Mortarks.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly what I'm pitching. Yes.
Yeah, and so that's the more likely. And then the third possibility, and this is the one that I love, but it will never happen, is you get a Neferata New Lamnia release, which is all like vampires mixed with like the Tomb King's aesthetics, which won't happen.
Sure. I mean, her realm is called Nefertiria or whatever, but sure.
No, New Lamnia is where she reigns.
Her realm in Shaiish, whatever, it doesn't matter. We'll it's fine. I don't want to get into an argument.
It's okay. I'm right. But what I would say is that but I think that it's probably going to be this pitch down the middle. And if we do get any Wraith Fleet kits, like it'll just be like a ship and then like a dual kit. So it'll be a small sub portion of the larger line that gets released, and it'll be all vampires and a bunch of different bloodlines. So maybe we get a special. Here we go. Maybe you get a dual kit that's a ship, and the Mortark of the Abyss is on one of the ships. So you get like a named, like the name flagship, and then you get a generic ship as your ship kit, and then you get some type of pirate dual kit, like, like seaman dual kit, and then you get. That's your new releases for Harkin or for this thing, and that's how you get a new Mortark. And then the other two Mortarks end up filling in the other two bloodlines. Something like that.
Here's my argument for what this looks like. You ready? Gits. This is Gits. Okay? And here's what I mean. It's not the same exact book. I'm not saying that. When you look at what they did with Gits, right? Gits kind of has four major factions within it, right? Your regular Geats, your trolls, your little red balloons, and which most people call squigs, and your spiders. Yeah, yeah, okay.
Right.
And they all kind of got their own thing,
Release.
their own abilities, their own attention, their own stuff, and eventually, through articles, they realized they needed to build each of them out a little more, and so on and so forth, right? But it's you know, it's all one army, but they can be taken as a singular force or all together, right? And you look at about the amount of new releases that because it was a lot of really squig focused stuff, right? Like a lot of the new stuff was squiggy type based, right? And I understand there was also new rock trolls and the new Dankhold and stuff like that. But at the same time, you got like the double version of the new Squiggy Knights, you know, your new Hoppers and the Bounders. You got your little Snufflers who are still kind of like that, right? That sort of thing, along and so on and so forth.
Yep.
I feel like this is the same exact thing where the release is kind of like they go, well, here's what we've got. It's not really enough, and it's mixed up with all this other junk that it shouldn't be part of, right?
Right.
And instead, we're going to take it to the broader, like into its own thing, into its own Soul Blight thing, and have the three factions exactly what you kind of like, exactly as we kind of talked about there, right? So you've got
Right.
Manfred, kind of the knight. You've got Neferata, who's more of the pure like blood and stuff like that, and they'd probably put like the blood dragons and stuff under her, even though they're sort of in the book they're kind of their own thing. And or maybe they go up under Manfred, or maybe they're just the generic cav that's kind of, you know, across the board, right?
Right.
And then you've got this new thing, which is the Wraith fleet, right? And that has its own new Mortark, and there you go. And that's the model for it. And what they release is a little bit, but then mainly on the new thing, right? So you get kind of this T-shaped, this sideways T-shaped release, right? Couple releases for the existing stuff to refresh a kit or two. Like we got refreshed.
And you could get new
Fanatics,
zombies,
right?
like
Same
you
sort
could
of thing.
get new zombies or new, like not new skeletons probably, but you could probably get new zombies with this.
Sure.
Which is like the tentacle guy that we saw like shambling through. That could potentially be what we were looking at there with the Halloween preview.
And to me, that feels much more coherent as a force, right? In the same way that like then you can mix everything up. That just feels like the contours of a release they do, right?
Yeah, like, and it's expandable. It dips into the current line. It basically provides a soft reboot of Legions of Nagash.
Yeah. It would just
which
it would
is
be
needed.
exactly. It would be their soft reboot of that book, pulling out the last big piece into the thing people have actually wanted to see out of that book, right?
Yep.
Like,
So the question is, do we get new Lamnia kits with that release as well?
Well, define what you mean.
Well, and so here's the question: like, do we get? So we have on one hand, we have Wraith Fleet, so we have this like new Mortark and a bunch of Vampirates.
Yep.
So we have a bunch of other Vamps, right? We have two other factions. Like, let's say the aesthetics for Night, the Legion of Night, is roughly batty, like the standard kind
it's
of
bats and wolves.
It's fairly
vampire.
old school. kind
Traditional
of
Transylvanian
Castlevania.
type of exactly.
Like
Yes.
Castlevania aesthetics.
Yeah.
So do we get? So like, I'm assuming we get like foot vamps and heavy armor or something. I don't know. Like people have been begging for that junk for years. So we'll probably get some other, like some plastic vampires. That's fine.
Yeah.
And
again, this is exactly the type of kit they love to make.
Yes. So then the question is this: do we then get? So like we know we probably get releases for Legion of Blood or Legion of Night and Legion of the Abyss. Would we get something for New Lamnia then in her aesthetics?
I don't think so. No.
So
I guess it depends on what you mean by in her aesthetics. But my answer would be
how many kits are we looking at?
4 new kits for the Wraith Fleet side, and then like 1 to 2
For
refreshed
both
kits
for
for everything else. That's my answer.
1 to 2 refresh kits.
Mhm.
So you're talking a total, like what you've just named.
Is like a
let's
6 to
say-
8 kit release. Yes.
Which is about what Gits was, wasn't it?
Yep. That's exactly right.
But they also had old kits to rely on. What are the old kits that these vamps are relying on?
Both the Vampire Lord on insert monster here, right? Those kits are plastic. They're still great
The dragon,
kits.
sure.
Sure.
Yep.
Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon and
Terrorgeist,
Terrorgeist,
sure.
yes.
Right.
Okay, so
the Coven Throne,
the Coven
and
Throne and Bloodseeker Palanquin. Again, still a plastic kit, still relatively modern, and still quite beautiful, by the way, right?
And you could technically make the Mortis engine a vampire too. Like, there's nothing, like, it's a dude in a robe. Who knows what he is?
Sure. I
You
don't
tie
think
that into Wraith Fleet
right.
a bit harder than
Sure. The Vargeists obviously stick around, right? Because they are part of a still existing kit, right? Like
Right.
they're a build out of a kit that's currently being sold in a Death Army. So
They're vampy. Yep.
and again, they're modern plastic kits that are quite beautiful and don't need remade or retouched. Obviously, Nephi and Manfred themselves, right? Both of them are still
Right. They're staying.
the Mortar kit is still solid, no issue there at all. Okay. Then yeah, I think that's it for your existing.
Well, you have a
kits.
Vampire Lord on foot that they can keep.
I'm really hoping they just throw that guy in the trash. I was purposely not counting him. It's a fine cast model and it's trash.
if they were going to redo this with a focus on vamps, they're going to do a plastic vampire on foot.
Yeah, I
hopefully.
mean, it just feels like it has to happen. Now,
So then let's
that
do
might
that.
be in the
What-
inevitable box set, the dual
Right.
box,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Like, you're telling me
So
that
what
these
if-
guys happen, they don't show up in a dual box at some point with a new vampire on foot hero? That's how that happens.
So what is, yes, they'll keep the Vampire on foot fine cast, and then they'll release the plastic in the dual box.
Mm-hmm.
And basically as the replace sculpt, just like they did with the Squig boss. Okay, so here's the question then. So you predicted
and probably like by the way, the Dire Wolves, because that's also a plastic kit.
Okay. The weird dead wolves. Got it. So you predicted 4
Mhm.
revamped, or 4 Wraith Fleet. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what are those 4 kits? Because that's a bold claim.
Well, let me start with the other ones first, actually, because I think
Okay.
I'd rather flesh out my prediction on the other ones first. So the other ones are remade infantry, remade Blood Knights, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I think you could be absolutely right on something like, they would redo like a minion type kit, probably 1 to 2 minion type kits. I don't know if that means bats or some kind of new bat-ish monster or a bat thing. Like redoing bat, I doubt it'd be bat swarms, but it could be like a new kind of fell bat or something like that, right? And then or zombies, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because that just fills out those existing ones with the new stuff, yeah. Now with the Wraith Fleet side, you're going to have your kits are going to be I don't think you'll get a boat. Let me just say that. Like, I would love it if we did, but I honestly don't think you do. I think you'll just get that aesthetic, okay? And by the way, I'm not counting the Underworld's Warband as one of these 4 kits. I'm just calling that that's a bonus nacho.
Okay? Yeah, that's separate. Yep.
Cool. So we've got that's your little skirmishing piratey kit, okay? So you're gonna have a group you're gonna have your foot vampirates.
There's seamen.
Yes, like just with cutlasses and pistols and stuff like that. Like, that's going to be one of the kits.
Yep.
Right? You'll have a captain for that group, right? You'll
Like a
have
foot
a
captain.
vampire lord. Okay. You'll have the Mortark itself, right?
Yep.
So the new Mortark of the Abyss or whatever, right? And you'll probably get a pretty scenic looking Mortark in some way. Rather
He's
than
going to be on the prow of a boat.
Yeah, I was just
Could be.
thinking, though, if he's not on a boat, how will they make the Mortark the centerpiece model, which is what they do in Death.
Sure.
So, yeah.
It is the centerpiece model. My argument would be they're going to have it they'll do a diorama type piece with like it up on a big pile of treasure or something like that, you know.
Boat.
Sure.
Okay, go on. It's a boat. That's 3 kits.
Okay, sure. Well, let's give you the lore on the boat. That's fine, right?
And then they dual kitted as then just a normal boat.
Oh, okay, sure, that's fine. That's still only 3 kits. I'll grant you that. Like,
right.
I'm not gonna, yeah. I'm not gonna try to. And then the 4th kit, I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know what the 4th kit would be, but it feels like there would be another one. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe this is where the monstrosity comes in, right? But I don't think you want to make a sea creature because that's going to be too like a dead sea creature because that's going to be too much in Idneth's realm. Okay, and they don't want to duplicate that aesthetic. But
it does depend on what sort of sea creature it is.
Sure. Abyssal abomination.
Well, yeah, like it could be some kind of abomination, like an octopus kraken like monster thing, because that's not really territory that the Idneth tread in, other than obviously the hero for one and all Lotan. But that's kind of the only, octopus-ish like thing. So you could get into that kraken type space pretty easy. Yeah. So there you go. That's some kind of monster or something like that.
A huge flesh grafted crab mutated abyssal thing.
Sure, we don't have a lot of crab stuff yet. Go ahead, Clint.
The issue with the crab is that's Vampire Coast in Total War 2.
Right.
That's because there's the crab in there, and
yeah.
It's just, and I think they've got that. What is it called? There's the big thing that's made out of like a mast, and
there's the big walking like ship golem.
Yeah, it has a name that escapes me, and it's just like, well, are they going to lean into that, or want it to be its own thing? And if they start pinching too many ideas from it, then it's just.
I think aesthetically, I think that they are going to want to evoke that, like, they will steal some of the ideas. I don't think all of them. But I think that it will be enough to draw the eye of potential customers who had a hankering for those things. Again, I don't think it'll be a straight ripoff, but I think that there will be some aesthetics that will bleed in. I do.
Yeah. Okay. Right on. But all in all, so let's walk through. So if you look at some version of the kits I just laid out, doesn't that feel like a reasonable release? Like that feels like a release they would do.
You're missing a couple kits. Like what I mean, there's nothing to distinguish New Lamnia then. Like zero from the Legion of Blood.
Sure. I mean, when you look at Goblins, the Gits re-release, I don't remember the exact number of kits they have, but I want to say it was about 8 off the top of my head. I'm counting. There I am counting double builds. Okay. So
hold on. So you have the Fanatic double build.
Yep.
That's just one.
Yep.
You have the Hopper double build.
Yep.
That's 2. You have the Loon King.
Yeah, sure. Oh yeah. New actual Loon boss and new guy on Giant Cave Squig that came in the box. Sure.
Right. Gobopalooza.
Yeah, sure.
You had Snufflers.
Yep.
You have
Dankhold and Rock Trolls.
Dankhold Rock Trolls.
Yep. So that's 10 scrolls and or was that 8 kits, 7 kits? Because I was counting scrolls. So yeah. 10 scrolls. Sorry, 7 kits or something like that. 8 kits.
Yep. Yeah. And so.
Oh yeah, the new Manglers. There you go. Thank you. And of course.
And the new Manglers, right? So I mean, what I would say is that we had a number of kits. Like, it was a very large release. It's probably the largest new kit release we've ever had. But there were 4 distinct sub-factions that didn't really play well with others in there.
Mm-hmm.
You had Squigs. You had Foot Grots, where none of their buffs stacked, like with Squigs. It was completely distinct. You had Spiders and you had Trolls. And none of that stuff overlapped.
Sure.
So you had 4 distinct factions.
Mm-hmm.
I think we could get 3 distinct factions here.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think that's right. I think you'll still have the ability to put them all together, of course, obviously.
Sure.
It's just, how much overlap are you getting? So
Yep.
yeah, I mean, if you look at Slanesh, it's about 10 kits, not counting the Underworlds Warband, the Mortal Slanesh, right? So clearly, Gietz was a little more. It was like in the 10-11 kit area. So the um, so I mean, clearly you might be right. Like I hope I'm missing a few. That would be great. I think that'd be even. I mean, like my point is, with that 8, I would feel like we had a coherent army. Okay.
Mhm.
Now,
Yeah.
something that Phalanx said in the comments I think is good is, they want to leverage the popular aspects of that game to attract crossover. They recently raised a faction of Marines in 40K from the games to a more prominent status, and GW knows how popular Total Warhammer is and how many people it brought to the game. It feels like this would be a good way to capitalize on that, which I don't disagree with. That's ultimately why I think this is. I don't remember how long ago those Vampirates came out in Total War.
It's been a while.
It's, but like clearly they would have known about it coming to the game before it actually launched live in the game, right? And I could easily see them going, okay, this is a thing we know is launching in the video game. You know,
2
it
years
seems
ago.
like it's going to be popular. Cool.
November 2018.
There you go. And so it feels like the kind of cycle time that they could have gotten into, right? And said, okay, this is, they would have known about it earlier in the year or even the year before and said, this feels like something that's going to be pretty popular. People really liked it back when it was sort of a minor aspect of the overall story. Let's see what we can put together for some kids, right? Because I think that they, one thing I know that happens is they don't always make everything that gets sculpted into a full army, right? That's how you got things so interesting like Quest and Blackstone Fortress and things like that. Sometimes they just end up with one-offs and they don't know. That doesn't necessarily have the gas to make a whole army out of it. But I think this would have been worth an exploration, right? Okay. Cool beans. All right, so we've kind of touched on this already with these three ideas. But Clint, you're currently in the middle of doing like an Old Hammer project around some classic vampire accounts, right?
I am. They're just behind me in one of those tubs. Yeah, like proper 6th edition from when I started, but on rounds.
There you go.
So.
How much do you think this will connect to like existing Soulblight lore, or existing old lore, etc.? Like how close do you feel like they want to make this?
I think that I was reading the Soulblight lore this morning just to brush up on what they had changed with AOS. It's very similar. It's still blood. It's still this. They call it Soulblight, but they still have to drink blood. They still have to do all that sort of stuff. I think they will tie it back to the lore as far as they've tied other stuff back. So, like Manfred ties back tangentially to Sylvania and the old vampire counts and things like that. And you get little callbacks here and there, and I think that's probably where they will leave it. There'll be the touchstones that people will recognize, but then they'll try and create new stories and go forward from that. And which is something that they've been doing with pretty much everything. Just the little nuggets there for people who played before, but lots of cool new stories that they can tell with the breadth of the world. So we might get the new Lamia touches through stuff. If there's like a dual infantry kit or something like that, there might just be some nods and things like that. So
yeah, I tend to agree. I think that's right. And I think that's what makes me really like the idea of having sort of the new Mortarch and having this one portion of the army that's kind of like the new thing we build out. Yep. And then we've got the existing 2 that call a little more to the sort of traditional aesthetic, right? It lets them kind of have their cake and eat it too. And AOSify the whole force while still calling back to the old bloodlines in a clear way.
Mm-hmm.
Tom, go ahead, Clint. I'm sorry.
What would the new Mortarch job be like? Because what we've seen that the Mortarchs have jobs. So, Alinda and her Nighthaunt, they are the shock troops. They're the quick rush. They go, they kill everything. Catacross is he's the Immaculate General. Neferata is the spy master. Manfred is the terror troops kind of thing. What do we reckon that the new Mortark and that force, what would their job be, so to speak?
I'm gonna argue raiding and like just what I'm trying to call this, like piratical raiding, basically. Like that's the because the Wraith fleet can now sail over land. Like they talked about that post the what do I want to say? The Necroquake. Thank you. That was the word I couldn't think of in my head. He's the Wraith fleet they mentioned can go out over land now, right? And so to me, it seems like the idea is they hit deep into enemy territory where his other troops can't go, right? So like Lady O tends to come in through like gates and stuff like that and be the frontline forces that then the other death people march behind. But that's still part of like an organized military incursion, right. Like when they took the one of the 8 points, right?
Right.
I think that this is what they do. Like this is their Mortark for like behind enemy lines incursions, right? They're there to build wealth, blood, stuff like that, to steal power, artifacts, magic, things that Nagash and the Death need, right? Like they go in, they soften things up, they steal stuff, and then they're gone.
If you're landlocked, you're definitely not going to be expecting a ship full of Vampirates to rock up and steal all your stuff.
Right.
Yes. Right. That should be the one thing we don't have to worry about. Gosh darn it.
Yeah. The Mortark.
Like I thought we got away from those.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that, like, to me, that just makes sense, right?
Right.
So, okay, Tom, any thoughts on the connection lore?
No, I think that is accurate.
Okay.
I think that that's like what we've described is, I think, the types of things that we'd expect.
Okay. So we've covered units, lore, the bloodlines. Clint, is there anything that you kind of thought about as you were thinking about this that I haven't touched on yet?
Not really. We've sort of covered off pretty much everything, and including how they fit into stuff. So I don't have anything to add. Okay. Sorry.
Tom,
there's
that's
probably
fine.
something I'm missing.
That's all good. I just want to make sure I was missing. Tom, is there anything we missed in this? Anything we didn't cover?
No, okay. I think we're good.
Yeah, I mean, to me, all the signs are there that this is happening. Between the rumor engines, between the Van Brecht throwout and the end of Broken Realms Marathi, between what we saw in Underworlds, I mean, there's only so many coincidences before it's not a coincidence anymore, right? Like, it's clearly just part of a plan. I think the one thing I would really love to see, let's close out on this, okay? Which is, let's talk quickly at just sort of give a couple high-level, neat mechanics you would love to see for the army. I mean, literally, you can talk about anything you want. Could be an allegiance ability, could be a battalion type thing, could be an artifact or spells, or I don't care, right? Just think about any type of mechanical type thing you'd love to see this army have. I'll start. Okay, just to give you both a time to let the gears grind there. For the Wraith fleet, like the vampire piratical sort of raiders thing, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I would love to... So, stealing gold in a game of AOS means one thing and one thing only, and that means stealing objectives. Okay?
Sure.
So, I would love to see the raiders have, whatever the Wraith Fleet raider side of it is, I would love to see them have some kind of ability to literally steal an objective from another force when they move onto an objective. Like, they get to, for the turn they charge, make the enemy count as 0 models and, like, steal it away, or, something like that, right? They have some kind of special thing they can trigger. Maybe it's they have to charge and a command ability gets activated. You can put it behind paywalls, quote unquote, as it were, right? But, like, they can literally steal the gold out from under you, right? I think would be a really cool mechanic that would make them feel very piratical.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. That's mine. Clint, what do you got? What would you like to see?
Well, I think it's the opportunity to bring some shooting into mainline death that we don't already have. Like, I know we have the crawlers in OBR, but typical, Legion's death doesn't really have shooting, and there could be some scope there to bring in. I don't know about cannons because it's getting a bit crazy, but you've got these Vampirates with pistols and things like that, and I'm wondering if that would be quite a cool thing to just bring in a little bit of short range shooting, which is one of Death's typical downfalls, and whether that only really works when you're in a Wraith fleet. They have a way to leverage that off so you don't just go, oh, I'm going to put my Vampirates into this other Death army and go crazy. And I was also thinking about ambushing, which currently sits with Legion of Night, but I know when I was running my Wraith fleet that I built, I was using Legion of Night rules because that really represented, these pirates turning up out of nowhere and coming and stealing all your stuff. So
that's what Wraith fleet had. Like,
whether they just rejig that, and we get some sort of interesting combo of like what Nighthaunt has now and what Legion of Night has, maybe something in there to represent that sort of surprise as well.
Yeah, I'd much rather see them change Legion of Night away from the ambushing thing and give the ambushing to like the Wraith fleet portion and turn the Legion of Night into like you can summon dumb low piddle stuff like what Manfred traditionally used. So bats or wolves or whatever, from like terrain on the board. Right? Like much the way like how the Scuttletide spell pops out. You just continue the kits comparison, right? It'd be really cool if you could if he could just like boom, like out of a some woods or a building, a unit of 5 direwolves pops out, right? And so much the same way that like the Ravagers in Slaves of Darkness, their generals can kind of hop around, and each round they can call on their boys from the edge of the board. The leader of like the Legion of Night once a round can call some like min unit, just like the same way they have it structured there of dire wolves or bats or whatever, right? And then you give the ambushing to the people it belongs in, which is the Wraith fleet guys.
Yeah, it's cool. And the calling those little low level minions is very Von Carstein. It's very old school as well. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it feels so like I remember that like in so many stories of Manfred, he would just always have he would just blacken the sky with his bat swarms and stuff, like this was his thing. So yeah, agreed. And I despite my constant making fun of Manfred as the worst Mortarch, in fact, I do owe Manfred a great debt because he gave us Age Sigmar. So thanks, Manfred. We're all
what I remind people of all the time.
Yeah, I mean,
we don't have this game without him.
We all owe him a great debt. And let's be honest, the real bad guy was obviously Techless the whole time, which that we can all agree on. Okay, Tom, what about you? Any mechanics you want to see?
Not that I can think of.
Okay,
honestly.
Somebody mentioned stealing artifacts in the comments, which would be amazing, right? I mean, any kind of like stealing stuff like that would be super cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much you could do with this beyond the already existing vampire type mechanics that are obvious of like, if they kill things, they drink blood and heal and blah 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 blah. Like all of that type of stuff is completely fair. I would hope that if we get new Blood Knights, that they actually can heal in a real way. Like
that would be good. Thank you.
Yeah, be interesting.
Sure. Or just make them tougher. Like I'm okay with them being like hyper elite infantry that can't like restore a model because they are supposed to be like the elite of the elite vampires. It's hard to believe that a new vampire just pops up out of nowhere. Like I'm okay with that. Then just make them that hard, right? To where they're worth, hundreds of points as 5 guys with 15 wounds, right?
Yeah.
Like just make them worth that level of points and have them pack that level of toughness, and then cool. Yeah, that's fine. I'm okay with that. Like I love the idea of hyper elite infantry, and you can get away with it. It can work. They just have to be defensive enough to live and offensive enough to actually earn their points and clear an objective, right? So if you put both those things together, sure, man, I'll go in for like a 250 point Blood Knight unit that can earn that, right? like guys on a 3-up save with a 5-up after save or something, sure, absolutely, because they're hardcore, you know what I mean? And then when they hit like a truck coming in. Yeah. Yeah, Death Varangard, yes, absolutely, W. Soren. Yeah, 100%. There's no reason you couldn't hit that, right?
Yep.
All right, cool. Well, gentlemen, I think we've now speculated, and so in a mere 3 months, probably less, because hope they'll do some kind of reveal show probably in January around the time that the LVO reveal show would have happened. And I'm guessing we'll know the shape of it then. I hope. Yeah, we'll see. Unless they really keep this one under a bushel and we don't know. But I have a feeling in the next couple months we'll know the truth of all this. So we'll have to come back and see how we did. Clint, absolute pleasure, my friend. Thank you for coming on the show. This was fantastic.
Thank you for having me on. So,
I just want to point out, by the way, that Clint is completely in theme. You can't really see it because my head's in the way here, but right here is the poster on Clint's wall for the vampires, and right down here he's had the epic vampire wallpaper on his computer the whole time. This man is pure professional right here, so I hope people notice that. No, thank you, Clint. Absolute pleasure. To all of you out there, thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it. As always, we'll see you next Wednesday. Don't forget to hit the like button on your way out. Bye. Hit like. Hit subscribe if you didn't. Bye, everybody. See you next Wednesday.